Programming has most definitely been turned on its head in 2025, and there are a lot of concerns out there about programming and coding. Should I learn coding in 2025? What framework should I learn? What language should I learn in 2025? And now, of course, it's only natural that there are a lot of worries when people are writing on Twitter all the time. You'll never be able to get a coding job again. I just built a full-scale app that I sold to Amazon for $2 billion in 30 minutes using Cursor AI. No, but there are some genuinely serious concerns about AI making programming obsolete. And people are thinking, how should I approach coding? If I'm new to it, if I'm old to it, or if I'm thinking about learning it. And I'm here to answer, or at least give you my take on those questions. So first of all, AI should be viewed as an assistant, not a replacement. And now, this is not to say that AI can't do a massive part of what humans used to do and what humans used to have to do, but still, you're still a human who needs to prompt this AI to build something. Therefore, technically, it's more of a tool. AIs are not out there thinking, sitting there in their basement or their closet office one day thinking, I think I should build this app. No, you have those ideas. You're the creative in control, and you come up with those ideas, and you go and you prompt an AI together with you in order to make a code base that you can then produce and that you can then publish and eventually make a software product out of. Therefore, it's not replacing you entirely, it's a tool. And you can either be someone who uses that tool to replace others, or you can be replaced by someone who's more efficient while using these tools. So therefore, it's a little bit of a complex question, but I think therefore that at the end of the day, it's not a replacement, but it's a very, very, very powerful assistant. And a couple of people have obviously then varying opinions. For example, Okta, which is a cybersecurity company, Todd McKinnon is the CEO there, and he quite famously went on an interview and said he doesn't think that AI will replace programmers entirely, but more that it will move programmers and software engineers up a level. So instead of handling the more basic things of writing code line by line after a set of Jira tickets, for instance, maybe you move up and you consider the more architectural, the more structural challenges to building a large software product, which at the moment in 2025, AI isn't as good at. So it will not therefore in that way replace you, but it will do, for example, what the Industrial Revolution did, where instead of having people sit down and stitch clothes by hand all of the time while pedaling with their foot, and obviously now I'm simplifying this quite a bit, instead there were engines and there were machines that could be used to make this instead, where humans then had to move up a level and consider the architectural production line, the design of the clothing that they were making, etc. Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott predicts that within 5 years, and he said this in 2024, within 5 years, AI will be writing 95% of all the code, and humans will be doing the more creative, the more problem-solving parts of programming, and problem-solving in the way that, okay, how should we change this code to make this integrate with what's common on the market, and how should we use this code to solve problems for real people? And both of those suggest that no, it's not here to replace us entirely, but more act as a very, very, very effective assistant. So, what is all this rage about AI-based coding in 2025 then? And there's a couple of different platforms that are being used. I personally love Cursor. Cursor is a fantastic IDE, which is a place where you write code. You might have heard of JetBrains or you might have heard of Visual Studio Code before, which are also two common IDEs. And essentially what you can do in Cursor is that you can prompt an AI, which is built into this IDE, to make changes to your code base. So you can, for example, say to it, hey, generate a folder structure for a Flutter app that's gonna be reviewing sports games using a ChatGPT wrapper. And this will literally go out, and in one go pretty much now these days with Gemini 2.5 and Claude 3.7, it will pretty much one-shot this and generate a somewhat functional app that you then have to go in and prompt the individual files to maybe change the UI a little bit here, change the functionality here, fix this bug. But it's going to be able to help you do that all in one place. And even if you're using an old code base and you're opening that in Cursor, for instance, you're going to be able to use that code base as context for Cursor so that Cursor can go ahead and it can make changes to your already existing code in a much faster and efficient way than you would have done it typing it all out there like a monkey. Now, but there are also other tools. So for example, there's GitHub Copilot, which is a similar tool to Cursor, but where GitHub has a tool built by Microsoft where you can similarly get real-time advice from an AI that's going to look at your code and it's going to say, I think that this is what you want to type next, or I see that this error here, here's how you can solve it. I've found that this is a little bit less interactive than what Cursor is, and therefore I prefer Cursor to GitHub Copilot, but it's also a good option. Another one which is completely no code is Lovable. So Lovable.dev is a startup which allows you through natural language, similar to a ChatGPT interface, build full-scale web apps, integrate them with Supabase, which is a back-end alternative, and literally have this published within an hour. And I've made some cool apps for this. For example, you can check out my app portfolio down below. That's built entirely using Lovable, and I probably did that in 2 or 3 hours, and now it's live, usable for everyone who wants to showcase their portfolio. So these are some of the more common tools in 2025, and these are probably what you're hearing all the rage about. These are what people on Twitter are telling you, or X, or whatever you call it these days, are telling you that's going to be replacing you. And yes, I think that to some degree, some people, or a lot of people maybe even, will be replaced. But I don't think that this will be everyone, and I don't think this will be all coders and programmers and software engineers. Rather, I think that this will be the people who refuse to embrace these tools and the people who are stuck coding. But the true software engineers will see the value of this, and they will start using these tools as their assistant. So how can they combine these tools in combination with the knowledge and the experience that they already have to, in a faster, much quicker way, build applications and software? But interestingly, we've also seen the entrance into this space of another group, the so-called vibe coders. A vibe coder is someone who doesn't really have any real programming or coding or software engineering experience or knowledge, but they're someone who sits back in their chair, they prompt and sweet talk their AI a little bit, and the AI writes all of the code for them. They don't do anything, they don't understand anything, they just write code using this AI. And I think to some degree this can work, particularly for smaller scale applications. But I think also the problem here is that when it comes to updating, adding new features as the code base grows, it's gonna be a little bit difficult for some of these people to really scale these projects into larger multi-million-dollar companies. But sure, if you want to hack something over the weekend and make an app that can generate you a couple of $100s every month, or even a couple of tens of thousands of dollars every month, yeah, then it's definitely possible to vibe code that. And I think we're gonna see a lot of more software coming into the market by people being able to do this. And I think this is gonna be mostly smaller products. I think the larger proper enterprise level companies are still gonna be full of people who actually do know how to software engineer, but that's yet to see. So what is then the state of coding in 2025? And I think that this can be defined as AI driven, but person touched software engineering. And what I mean here is that yes, AI is gonna be writing most of the code and probably is already writing most of the code that's out there in 2025. However, it's still people like you, like me, unless you're an AI analyzing this for some learning algorithm somewhere, but like you and like me who are sitting there and watching this AI write the code and telling it what to write and then making small edits here and there. It's still driven by us. It's written by an AI, but it's driven by us. And therefore, that's why I think it's AI driven, but human touched upon. So we add the final touch as humans to code in 2025 still. I also do think and strongly believe that if it is 2025 and you're considering to learn how to code, one, yes, definitely do it. Because if you do have some knowledge and if you do have experience on how to actually build software, it's going to help you a lot when it comes to using these AI tools. But I also think number two is that don't sleep on these AI tools. If you are someone who's fantastic at coding and making software, but you don't know how to use these tools and you refuse to use them, I truly think that you're going to get left behind. You're not going to be able to keep up with the speed, and you're not going to be able to keep up with the technological advancements that are allowing some of these other people to build things and iterate on things much faster than you are. I also think that we're going to see a lot more products come to market, and we're seeing a democratization of tech. Before, you had to know how to code in order to validate an idea, to build an MVP. Before, you had to have some degree of software engineering knowledge. Now, you don't really have to have any knowledge of software engineering just to build a simple MVP to validate your idea or validate your concept. You can do that in a weekend if you're an average Joe with access to a computer, which in and of itself, it's fantastic because competition technically increases quality. And there's a lot of people here who say that, oh, this is going to pump out so many bad quality apps. Yes, it is going to pump out a lot of bad quality software, but within that space, once we're seeing an increase in the amount of software being made, if you're top 1% of that, that's still gonna be good quality, but the number of software projects that are that 1%, just because of its relative proportion in a growing space of software, is still gonna entail more, absolutely speaking, higher quality products. So who do I think is gonna be winning in 2025? And I think it's going to be two people mainly. First of all, it's going to be the indie developer who has some knowledge, and I put myself quite clearly in this category, some knowledge of software engineering, people who have built apps and they do understand the fundamentals, but they're relying heavily on some of these AI tools in order to be able to iterate and build fast. So if you have an idea, you can build that idea in a weekend, you can test it. Did this work? Did it not work? If it worked, then you spend more time on it, maybe give some more manual input, and you develop that project. If it doesn't work at all, you move on. You didn't spend a whole year developing this just for it to fail. You validated that idea quickly. And I think these people are going to be winning, because the people who are truly contributing to this and the people who are truly dedicated to building, they're going to be building, and there's nothing that's going to be holding them back. Hell, I've built 10 apps and we're 3 months into 2025. And some of these turn out to do nothing, some of them are generating thousands of dollars every month. So it's an interesting paradigm where I don't think that the most skilled people are going to be the most efficient, but I think it's going to be the people who have some degree of skill but are using these tools to the greatest extent possible in an efficient way that are going to end up being the most productive software engineers in 2025. So that's one group that I think is going to be winning. And the second group of people that I think are going to be winning in 2025 are the smaller teams within enterprises. I used to work at a company before, which was a fantastic tech company, but I watched as a 12-person team took a year and a half to build a pretty basic mobile app. And this is far from the future. What's going to be the future is that this 12-person team is not going to be 3 people, and they're going to be doing it in half a year instead of a year and a half. So I think the companies and the people and the institutions that are going to be winning from this are the people who can adapt to this, scale down their teams, become more efficient per employee, not having so many dependencies that you need to coordinate that can go wrong every time you try to launch an update or a new feature, but rather having something that's relatively simple, that's relatively minimalistic, and that can be iterated on and changed relatively quickly using a small team and AI tools. These are the people that's going to be winning, and this is going to be the future and the state of programming in 2025. Now, who's going to be the loser? And I think this is pretty clear. I think the losers are going to be the people regardless of software engineering skill, but the people who choose not to embrace and choose not to learn using any of these tools. The people who say, no, I want to be able to do all this myself because I don't want to put myself into learning how to use these tools. I don't want to spend the 10 hours it takes to learn how to use Cursor efficiently, for example. These people are going to be losing because they're not only going to be more inefficient, but that inefficiency gap is only going to widen as this technology gets better and better and better, and they get better at a slower rate. Remember, technology develops a lot faster than humans do. We still look the same as we did 150,000 years ago, whereas technology is vastly different today only than it was 15 years ago. Just take this simple example. Imagine what a Nokia phone looked like in 1995. If they even had Nokia phones, just a mobile phone in 1995. And now take what a phone can do in 2025 in a 30-year time period. Pretty big difference. Now, imagine another 30 years on programming here. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg here, the first couple of years of this whole revolution that we're seeing. And I think the people who don't hop on this is going to be the same people who denied the internet when it came out. It's going to be the same people who denied the steam engine, the book press, you name it. I think we're at a pivotal moment in history, and the losers here are going to be the people who ignore it, dismiss it, and downplay the significance of it. But with that said, I think that you still need to keep an open mind to all of these tools, evaluate them, learn them, try them. If they're working for you, use them. If they're not working for you, move on to something else. I personally love to use Cursor, I love to use ChatGPT, and I love to use Lovable depending on the project that I'm working on. So definitely check those out. If you have some other thoughts, leave them down below in the comments. If you want to talk more about this, then you can join my community down below. Check out some of the assets that I have in regards to building and scaling mobile apps fast using Flutter. I have some free templates that I have instructions on how you can edit using an AI tool like Cursor and publish your own micro SaaS app. But that's going to be it for this video. If you like this type of content, then feel free to subscribe. It's completely free of charge, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.